Hello, and welcome to the Rock Metal Podcast. I'm your host, John Harris, and today on the Rock Metal Podcast, we have moel, and they have a new album called Diorama, which is set to release on November 5th via Nuclear Blast Records. So everybody watching on Twitch right now, that's twitch.tv/the Rock Metal Podcast. This album will be dropping on November 5th. Everybody tuning in on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Music, then it's already going to be out for you, so you can run away to go get it wherever you consume music. Spotify, Apple Music, whatever. Or is it Apple Podcasts? I don't even know anymore. Everybody's changing their names, but moel is who's on the show today. I'm being joined by Kim. Share some more information. So Kim, welcome to the show.
Thank you. And thank you for having me.
Great to have you on. Now, my first question is this album, Diorama. What did you guys set out to create? What was the intent with this record, if there was an intent?
Well, that depends on which level you speak on, but I'd say at least for the musical side of things, I know Nikolai sees this as a natural development from our debut album, Your, so it's like an expansion of that sound, trying to, well, I don't know if you'd say, I'd say we've refined it. I think our producer Tue Madsen at Anthem Studios has made a real job of distilling the elements of what makes our sound unique. That's one of the reasons why we really like, at least I think he specifically makes bands sound like the essential part of he brings out the essential parts of the band sound. So I know that we were all like really big fans of a lot of his releases throughout the years. So I know for a fact that it's like both Ken's, but also many of others like dream to be working with him.
How did that partnership happen? Did you guys just send an email? What happened?
Well, I think the partnership came down to our manager reaching out to him. I know that Tue had been eager to do something with us and was pretty interested to do something with us. But the circumstances of recording it was obviously because of the pandemic kind of split up into sections, because none of us actually arrived at the same time in the studio. I know Ken was the first to enter the studio, so he had really the pleasure of laying the foundation of how the whole thing should sound rhythmically, and then the guitarists arrived, and they had a week or so of stuff, and the bass and I as the vocalist we came at a later date. Also, I think the second lockdown was in full effect at that point. So, it's just, it was crazy time. Like, both Nikolai, our guitarist, and Holger had just become parents during the lockdown. So, trying to make sure everybody was safe while we're doing this was kind of also for us. But Tue did a really great job, trying to piece things together. And when we got the result, we were really, I think we were all pretty
stoked,
happy about how it all turned out. And lyrically, it's just, I see this also like a continuation from our work on Your. Your was mainly a record that was written over mortality and impermanence, the state of humans putting a lot of significance into our own lives, but eventually trying to reconcile the fact that we're not going to stay here for long. We're going to end up in the ground someday. So that was kind of like my framework for the first album. Well, I went through a pretty rough period. Møl was there when I had half a year of burnout during my the last semester of my education as a social science, and that all collided like in the summer of that year, where I just had half a year of sick leave and tried to piece together what to do with my life. Our manager Mirza Radoncica, who's also doing the vocals on Photophobic, he actually brought us together because he knew that I was really fond of the sound of the band and what they were doing. So we kind of met a way to work through a creative process without breaking my back, but essentially providing a space for like that, an outlet of a lot of like existential issues that I had at that moment. So this is actually a continuation of that, because when you end up with a loss of meaning, or at least a loss of sense of what you're gonna do, what do you end up with? Like if there's no God, if there's no like real purpose to whatever you're doing in this life, what do you end up with? We end up with each other, for better or for worse.
Yeah. So much stuff. How did you power through that 6 months? For everybody listening in right now who's thinking, man, I've done that for 6 months or a year, or I'm in the middle of that right now. How did you power through that? What was the thing that you did?
Well, therapy, like that, or that would be the short answer. But like, it's kind of a cliche to say that you have to work on lyrical concepts or poetry through a place of pain, but in a way that's kind of what feeds my machine in some sense. It's a way of processing a lot of stuff that you can't control. That is at least how I see a lot of songwriting. It's a form of regaining control of the things that you can control in your life. At least you can try to put it in a frame and build a narrative out of it. I think we all tell stories about ourselves. If it's not through words, it might be through creating art or
Instagram.
Yeah, doing Instagram posts. Yeah, exactly. Or whatever you do. Like I know people are always trying to tell a story about themselves, and I just happen to be the one putting voice and words to one of those stories.
Okay.
Well, to return to kind of like this album, the continuation of from our previous album, have you seen the movie Hereditary? Okay, so Ari Aster, this brilliant director, made a fantastic movie back in 2018. It's a horror movie, but it's also a movie about a woman essentially making dioramas, the 3D representations, miniature 3D representations of events in her life. So, and for that matter, like it's pretty traumatic. She's kind of depicting a lot of trauma that she's had, experienced with her mother, and and other family relatives. And instead of kind of helping her going through a process of dealing with that trauma, it kind of sucks her in and, ends up essentially possessing her. So I've used that kind of reference as a framework because it's kind of how I see how I ended up with after your of kind of when you end up with people, then you also end up with your history. You end up with why are you the way that you are? How have you come to the point in life where you have to say different things and kind of look things from the outside, have a 3D perspective out from it, so you can like turn it and analyze it. But essentially, I feel that Diorama is a way for me to kind of look at events from my life, face them at an objective point of view, and use it as a way to progress, or at least see beyond that valley into the next mountaintop. I don't know what takes me from here, but at least like this feels like a it feels like a milestone of some sort.
Okay, cool. Now, we've talked about refining the sound on the record, working with Tue Madsen. We chatted about becoming a parent, powering through struggles. Going back to refining the sound, how did Tue help with that? Because you mentioned he's really good at bringing out the band.
I think there's a lot of communication between him and Nikolai, our main songwriter. And also Ken and Nikolai, they're like the original members of the band, and they have a lot of say into how things are structured, songwriting wise. So like a great communication between them and Tue. A lot of references that kind of came through, but MØL is a guitar band. It's really much written around guitars and the melodies that that Nikolai has written. So that is the main instrument. And knowing that it had to be at least more organic and more raw in some sense, but also defined with, it can be noisy, but without stealing from the quality of the production. I think Tue has a really great ear for that fine tuning. That it gets wild and it gets somewhat out of control with it actually spiraling into full-on chaos.
Very true, very true. Now, there's a couple of videos that are available for everybody listening in right now or watching it right now on Twitch. You can head over to YouTube, type in moel, and there's a couple of videos available, Vestige and Serf, and we'll have those in today's show notes. Everybody watching on YouTube, for example, right now, you can go into the show notes down below. You've got the band's website that I have as a Facebook link, as well as the two videos, Vestige and Serf. The album Diorama coming out November 5th on Nuclear Blast Records. Do I have any other questions? What else can I ask you, my good man, other than maybe, I guess, take us through these videos, and then that'll be my last question. So, Vestige and Serf, take us through these videos. Well,
in the same weekend, it was actually Ken and I who directed them, and we had a really great photographer, Tobias Gavinius, who did and kind of cut the whole thing. So they're pretty significant. I know Vestige was recorded at like a landmark here in Aarhus called the Domen. So that's a big greenhouse that you see in that. That's it has become like a landmark for Aarhus, the hometown that we live in. And I know for the editing and the colors, I'm really I like movies. So have you heard about a movie called Suspiria? Okay, it's a pretty it's a old school horror movie, but with like a really oversaturated look. That's what kind of like the gist of trying to do some of the cinematography that kind of emulated that. So that was like a clear reference, and we wanted to do something that kind of highlighted, less, but in a really yucky way. It has that loathing, what's it called? That Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas feel.
Very willing.
Yeah. That was at least, that kind of like really yucky, sweaty summer vibe that we wanted to get out of that track visually. And for Serf, we recorded that on Sunday, and
the day after, right?
Yeah, the day after, and it was shot in portrait mode. I know we get a lot of flack for that because it's really why does it have to be in TikTok format? But it was actually our way of poking people. Our consumed formats. The song is pretty much about how we become slaves to formats and how we become slaves to but we're just worshiping something that's pretty hollow, and consume formats like that portrait mode is just really everybody just somebody starts doing it and then suddenly everybody's doing it. So the joke is it's actually a joke.
A meaningful joke.
A meaningful joke, though, yeah.
I don't think so.
Well, everybody wants to put meaning into things, but it's just so...
It's a point, it's not a joke.
Yeah.
Okay. Beautiful. Well, I mean, that concludes my questions, baby. So for everybody tuning in, head into the show notes. We've got facebook.com/moeldk. We have a couple of videos that we just finished chatting about with Kim here. Vestige and Serf. The record, Diorama, out November 5th via Nuclear Blast Records, wherever it is that you consume music. Kim, that concludes my questions. So thank you so much for coming on to the Rock Metal Podcast today.
Thank you. And thank you for having me. Sorry for the noise from the background, but...
Sorry.
Beautiful. All right.